big dog.
Humpty! What up, everybody? Welcome to Coffee Hour. We made it. It's hump day. We're at the peak. Okay, we're at the top of life's daily sinusoidal waveform. And we're going to head down as the day goes on. Thanks for joining me here on Coffee Hour. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you part of the show. As always, we do this Monday through Friday. So if you're new, you've never come before, where you been? Thanks for joining. We usually have fun here. We'll talk code. We'll talk to our family of code nerds that join us every day and answer your questions and look at a little something in the code. And today, we're going to be looking at 251.02. So I will say that we did a service show Monday on Memorial, but something got corrupt in the feed and it kept having problems, and people would email me and said it would stop after 2 minutes in or whatever. And it seemed like it happened on all platforms. I don't know if it was the feed that we sent out or the replay or how it worked. So in order to recoup that, or at least recoup something of that, I did what was a shorter video, just basically talking about 250.90 and 92. So make sure you check that out. That's a shorty. It's short for me anyway, in order to get something going on over there. So check that out. That is over on our YouTube channel. No, it wasn't moved over to the tube. I don't know what happened to it. It had a problem. So anyway, I tried to recover that with another video and then add in there some questions that people had about the application. Anyway, that's what we did. So hopefully you can go back and watch that. It's a shorter, different video, and I cover a couple questions that people had emailed or talked about. So today's show is sponsored by TradeHog. If you get a chance to check out the Hog, go ahead. I will tell you now that you can get to TradeHog no matter which domain you use, tradehog.com, .net, or .org. All roads lead to the Hog. So if you want to ask it a question, that's fine. Give it a question. It'll let you do up to 3. And before you have to become a subscriber, the cheapest plan is $9.95, I believe. And that gives you 10 specific inquiries an hour. So that's more than most people need. But then there's the basic program, which the majority of the people get. So check that out. Sponsored by TradeHog. Gotta push the hog. And of course, if you want videos, check out fasttracks.tube over on fasttracks.tube, which is right there. If you're interested in that, a lot of great videos over there. Ooh, look at that! Isn't that fancy? Okay, all right. So we're gonna do some shout outs to folks. Like always, let me know who you're from, where you're from, and share with us any experiences. It is in Virginia right now. It is nasty, rainy, stormy. It's just nasty here. Okay, I didn't bank on that, right? When I came back from Texas and I come to Virginia, I was like, dude, I need some nice weather back here. But no, it's been rainy and nasty ever since we've been back. So anyway, so if you didn't catch yesterday's episode, we did talk load side. So if you have any questions that came up from yesterday that you want to ask, feel free to ask. I will try to go back and recover those. That's what Coffee Hour is all about. And if you have anything you're struggling with, something that I can help you with, if I can, if it's going to be too detailed, then I'll tell you to send it to paulabernathy.com. That way I can kind of be a little more detailed with it. If you're looking for a good exam prep programs, check our fasttracksystem.com out as well. And we have some new items over there as well. That's right. Paul's always pushing and selling, always hustling. And also shout out to those that, I don't know who it was. I think it was Jonathan, picked up his minimalist wallet. As you see, I have mine with me. I always have my minimalist wallet. Okay. This is our trade series minimalist wallet. There you go, Master Electrician. So I love mine. And if you ask how much it'll hold, that's how much it'll hold. Okay, right there. Now, I took off my little clip on the back because it always caught on my pocket. My brother uses his to put the money under, the money clip. But anyway, there you go. All right. That's it for that promotional stuff today. People hate my promos. They're like, Paul, just get to the stuff. Stop talking about it. All right. Let's see here. Let's do some shout outs real quick. Oh, so we're going to be doing 250-102 today. We'll be talking 250-102. We'll kind of be talking about looking at it, obviously. And then, of course, we'll talk about the C, which is supply side. And then, of course, we'll be talking about D, which is be load side, equipment bonding jumpers and all that kind of stuff. Those will be easy. But we'll definitely look at all that stuff today. So let's do some shout outs real quick. Because again, I come here and I do this every day because I enjoy seeing you guys and gals and y'all coming and being a part of the family and knowing that you can ask questions or bring up anything you want to talk about. Again, we don't have to always do lessons every day. I mean, we can talk and explain stuff or go into detail about stuff. That's what coffee hour is about. So people out there that think that coffee hour is just to teach a code, it's not true. I have some coffee hours that we have slated. I think Jeff has slated that we're not going to even talk about code. We're going to talk about back to exam prep stuff. We're going to be talking about starting a business, about advancing your career, how to transition from maybe out in the field and into the office, what the hurdles you have to think about if you want to get into municipal inspections and plan review. I've been there, done that. So, and then of course, David can join in on that, on those episodes if he wants to chime in. Maybe you want to take your career in another direction. So we're going to have all kinds of episodes. Again, we do this 5 days a week. So we're going to be covering a lot of things throughout the year. So, and it's hard to believe that you can go back now and look and see the episodes that we have covered already up to this point. It's kind of crazy when I went and looked at it. The number of episodes and the number of topics, kind of crazy. You don't think about it when you're in it, right? But then you go back and look at it and go, there's a lot of topics that we've talked about. What's up, Paul? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
What's up, David? It's in the house, our CMECP from down in Southwest Florida. Is it nice and sunny? It must be nice and sunny in Florida because I see the little sun you put on there. It's nasty here in Virginia, I'm telling you. What's up, David? It is all well, my friend. It's, woke up this morning. It's a good day. It's a good day. I did see that Phil Robertson passed away the other day. Wasn't a big fan, but when Duck Dynasty was in its height, when it was big, I watched it all the time, and I loved Phil's wisdom. And he really felt like he was a genuine guy, even though, he's somebody that you saw off the street, it'd be just like that. And some people can't transcend that. He did. And, so he was an amazing dude, and controversial at times, but aren't we all, right? But you got to pray for Kay, his wife. She's now alone, although she has all her boys, so anyway, but, he wanted to celebrate his passing because, he knew where he was going. So condolences to the family, though. Let's see here. Adam, good morning. Welcome. It is hump day all day. Mike. What day is it? What's up? Douglas, welcome. Electron Wranglers. That's what I'm talking about. Good morning. Frank the Great, hump days in the house. Shouting out to all the Sparkies out there. I started this thing that was trying to start a social media called Sparky Mafia. And I try a lot of things here at this company. And some things catch on, some things do not. And things that do not. I mean, we owned a small company that went to accounting software for electricians. We had, a couple dozen electricians using it. They loved it, but it just did not meet the threshold that we needed to make it sustainable. So we ended up phasing it out. Gosh, what else have I done? Oh, we got so many things we've done through the years, but one was Sparky Mafia, and we were trying to create a replacement for the social media, have our own replacement for that. But, the problem with it is it's only electrical content, and people go to these platforms to see the stupid stuff that they do. I mean, we all are guilty of it, right? So it really didn't work as a separate platform just for electricians to go, and it just didn't work. So it was a neat concept, neat logos. Some people didn't like the skulls and stuff like that, but I'm not morbid on that type of stuff anyway. So I don't use symbolage for stuff like that. So but anyway, it didn't catch on, and you have to maintain things like that. So we just said, you know what, we're just not going to do it. So when you see something like podcasts, or you see something like, oh, I should mention, oh, dude, thank you all for that went and listened to the Bond and Ground podcasts. Y'all know that my podcasts typically get over 300,000 downloads a month, and from the massive NEC, and I have laxed in a little while. But the podcast, y'all brought it back up for all the people that listen to the Bond and Ground podcast. You brought the numbers back up, and we're back at our normal numbers. So again, I'm appreciative of it. We will get more episodes talking about grounding and bonding, because I find that such an interesting topic. Really, I do. What's up, Skyattle? Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. We got the hashtag wins going on. Good morning, Charlie. Hope everything is good with the family. What is up, High Voltage Hands? Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. What's up, Santana? I do not have coffee today. This is coffee hour, and as Adam will say, sometimes pluraled. I got the Pepsi. I'll be honest with you. I did not have any half and half, and I cannot drink coffee black. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's like I'm drinking chalk, and I don't have any milk. So yes, I know I gotta have a little milk in my coffee, or half and half, or whatever. Not a real man, as they'll be quick to tell me on social media. Paul, you don't work with the tools, and you don't drink black coffee. You're not a real man. I got you. Okay. And I do pee sitting down sometimes, because it's just I'm lazy. I'm just being honest. Let's see. What's up, Van Man? Thanks for joining me. And it makes less of a mess, because my aim isn't the best in the world, as my wife will tell you. What's up? Out in Riverside, California. That's where High Voltage Hands is working from. What's up, Outdoorsman Alex? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Oh, yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's just rain, rain, rain. I look out there at the excavator, and it's just sitting around a puddle of rain. I was like, dude, I'd rather be out there playing on that thing. What's up, Marlon? Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. Thank you for the inquiry, Marlon, about the CMECP. I did send you the information, whether you got it or not. That's a big step. You have to determine whether you're ready to make that step. What's up, Adam? Yep. You read my mind, right? So, yeah, I'd like to be out there playing on it. That's for sure. What's up, Manny? I saw you did. Yeah, your old one is holding on by a screw. Hey, dude, here's the deal, Manny. We don't have little extra screws, but you're not lying. And I found this with my Ridge I had as well for years ago, before I started using these. I take all of these screws out now. Not this one, because you see some are missing. I'm holding on. Obviously, I got another one. I'm just waiting, because I'm letting this one get beat to death. But screw these out and put Loctite in them. And they will, unscrew. When you get one of these, take and screw them out. And again, it's going to be like a little hex head. We don't send you a hex head tool. But screw these out and put a little dab of Loctite on them. And that will keep them better. My brother does that. Or others I know that do that. And it helps them last a lot longer. That type of thing. But if you're like me, I beat it to death. So what's up, Rob? Glad to have you here. Good morning. Good morning. Greg, I see you here. Greg Converse is in the house. I see you there with the hashtag win. Let's see. Van Man, good morning. Is a contractor's license considered a master? So we have been that's a great question, because I think that, be honest with you, I can't remember. I think that Marlin, for example, is a Florida contractor, but they also have a master's license in Florida. But when he submitted it, it was a contractor's license. We have been known to accept if you're the contractor, electrical contractor, we have been known to accept that as equivalent. We have not turned any applicant down for that. So you're either a master electrician, and when we say equivalent, if you're the actual license holder and you're and the reason we did that is because of states like Ohio that didn't have a master's license, they only have the contractors. I think we considered it, or at least in our bylaws that are on our website, we consider that equivalent. So if you're the only difference for that is we have to really scrutinize it a little bit, because there are places, for example, say Texas, where you can be the master on record, but the owner of the electrical contracting business is not an electrician. The owner doesn't have to be. So we do look at it, scrutinize a little bit that way, right? That type of thing. At the end of the day, you still got to make it through all the units. And if you don't, and I didn't see Tom in here, but David can attest, because David went through the program. It's probably going to be very tough for you to pass, because if you fail twice now on the competency review, you're out. So it probably would be tough if you don't have a background in it. So yeah, we look at each one of them different. When we look up your state, we look and see what the licensing requirement is in your state and all those type of things, and we'll make a decision that way. Same with an engineer, who typically we won't accept electrical engineers, unless they have a background in electrical. In other words, you can be an engineer and you can be a plumbing, or mechanical engineer and get a PE, but submitting that to be a part of the CMECP program is not going to work. All right. So because you're not active in the electrical industry, that type of thing. Does that answer your question, Van Man? But if you're an electrician and you're an electrical contractor and you're the license holder, we've scrutinized it a little bit more to make sure that there's not a master license required in your state. And why would you have an electrical contractor and not have a master's license? Those are the type of things that we scrutinize, and we'll look at it and make a determination. What's up, Charles? Glad to have you here. What's up, Ryan? Good morning. Glad to have you here. What's up, Michael? Glad to have you here, my friend, joining us this morning. What's up, Edgar? In the house. Thanks for being here, Edgar. What's up, Angel? Angel out in Colorado. I've got to get to Colorado. I am definitely making a pilgrimage to Colorado here in the next year. I need to go out to Colorado because I want to go to this place called Dragon Man. I don't know if y'all have seen it. You go on YouTube and type it up, Dragon Man. I just think the guy is cool as crap. I love things about the war, history of the war and firearms. I'm a big firearm guy, and he's got the most amazing collection of tanks and trucks and military memorabilia. And I shouldn't say, I guess it's not memorabilia, military stuff. It seems like that's a bucket list thing before that dude passes away. And that guy passes away, all of that goes to, his girls. He has some girls, but I don't think it would be the same. I don't think they can convey the same message as him. So that to me is Colorado Springs, Colorado. And go look it up on YouTube. It's Dragon Man. And just like it sounds, Dragon Man. And it's just amazing. And his daughters are cool as well, too. All right, let's see here. But that's my bucket list, Angel. I got to get out there to Colorado Springs. What's up, Anselmo? Glad to have you here. Oh, Poppy 420. That's a violation. What the hell are you talking about, bro? Let's see here. Estrada, good morning. In New Jersey. Glad to have you in New Jersey. Let's see. Who's going to be the first person to get banned today? Let's see. What's up, Adrian? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Joseph, good morning. Glad to have you here from up in New Jersey. RKT, what is up? Glad to have you here. John is in the house from Orlando, Florida. Welcome. I think you have to take both. Poppy says in New Jersey you have to. Yeah, it's like that also in Virginia. You can't be the electrical contractor unless you have a master's license. It's weird. Texas, you could do something. It's kind of like the proxy thing, whereas you could own a electrical contractor business, but you didn't have to be the master on record. that type of thing. And so there were people that they would pay people so the journeyman could do work for themselves. They would pay other people to be the master on record. They would own the company, that type of thing. Okay. He says, Marlon says, our exams are labeled masters. Okay, cool. I think you've already been approved. It's up to you whether you want to make the next step. We didn't have no problem with that, with your application. It was fine. What's up, Santana? I like my coffee sweet. I put half coffee creamer in my. I do too, dude. I cannot do it black. I have to have half and half, and I just got used to half and half. Usually it's milk, a little bit of milk, skim milk. Try to be a little bit, But I have to have three Splendas. The only problem is we're going to find out one day probably that Splenda causes cancer, but what the hell doesn't? Okay, and my whole family's had cancer, so shit, I'm just rolling the dice anyway, right? So anyway, but I gotta have it sweet. What's up? Thanks for joining us. Is it Pejaro or Peyero? Pelu? I can get it right. What's up? Thanks for joining us from up in Jersey. Okay. There you go. Yes, that is true. So in Florida, it is kind of if you get a contractor, that's also part of the reason, Marlon, because in Florida, to be a contractor, whether it's limited, unlimited, whatever you're doing, in areas like that, it's just more than just the electrical, that type of thing. So if you're going to go through all that, right, then you go through an effort. So Florida, we look at those a little differently. That's for sure. What's up, Mike? Yep, Dragon Man is awesome. He is awesome, dude. He's just cool. I hope to have the energy that dude has. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Let's see. I live. Okay, definitely. I will let you know, man. When I'm out there and I get out in Colorado Springs, I will definitely holler because I am definitely going. What's up, Haas? Up in Richmond. There you go. This Van Man says, Van, what does Van got to say is, I'm currently studying for my Florida's Unlimited. Would like to connect with you to see if I'm on the right track, if you don't mind, so y'all two can hook up. All right. See how you hook up. Let's see. Good morning, Felix. Marlon says, absolutely. There you go. Sharing some love up in the house. Okay. All right, everybody, let's go on and get into today's lesson. Again, as always, if you got anything you want to add or chime in, please feel free to do so. This is an open chat. This is where we can, even the haters are welcome, okay? You want to come, you want to watch, you want to join, you want to share some love, that's fine, okay? That type of thing. Yeah, he is freaking cool, And if you ever go and read the story, what happened to his wife, he was going to have a show on TV and had tragic thing happened while they were filming the intro. I think it was an A&E show. And one of the they didn't have proper permits for fireworks. And one of the fireworks went off and hit his wife, killed his wife. And so his daughters blamed him for it for a long time. And because Dragon Man has a brother and they hired people to do the pyrotechnics and something wasn't done right. They didn't do something right. And, who's to blame? It really wasn't Dragon Man? Was it A&E? Who was cutting the budget? They didn't hire a real pyrotechnics expert. Anyway, it was tragic. Killed her. And that ended the show. There was going to be no show after that. So very tragic. But go check that out. That's what happened to his wife. That type of thing. All right. Let's get into today's lesson, dudes. All right. 250-102. Very similar. And when we get there and we'll look at the table, and we got the code book as always. We'll go look at the code too. What's up, Leo? Glad to have you here. 250-102 it has a table. That table was derived from what's up, JAIT Electric. Atlanta, Georgia's in the house. Thanks for joining us. 250-102 was derived, the table, from 250.66, right? The only difference really was 250.66, it was a limiting factor, right? 1100 KC mil copper, 1750 aluminum, and then and that was it. And then the in that one, that 250.66, the grounding electroconductor never needs to be larger than a 3/0 copper. All that type of stuff didn't ring true when it came to 250.102. Now, it used to be you had the notes underneath it that would talk about the 12.5% when it's over 1100 or 1750 for aluminum. It had these notes, and you had to look at the table and understood what you were trying to achieve with that table in 250.66. Well, then they created 250.102, and it ripped all that stuff out about minimum size for the grounded conductor, supply side bonding jumper sizing, system bonding jumper sizing, all of that got put up in 250.102. It was a glorious day when the Code Panel 5, shout out to my friends over on Code Panel 5.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
Right? And so in order to make it a little easier to navigate. Now, by the way, I should say, for everybody that is not happy with the way the code may be changing in 2029, and we're going to see a little bit of it in 2026, trust me, I have done some more research into it. It is for the good. Even though we're going to have to learn some new sections and move things around a little bit, it's still good. And also, it gets our juices flowing, and we get to learn things new again and get excited about it and learn where things are moving. And maybe we can actually reinvent ourselves into the code again and see where things are moving. I think it's going to be an exciting time. Now, I may be retired by the time we get to that code cycle. I don't know. But I think it'll be an exciting time to learn the code. As an electrician, it's kind of like now we work with our hands and we learn these skills every day, but now we get to dig into stuff like code and see why we do what we do and where the code's behind it. That's what I try to do, right? That's how I try to look at it. I'm just saying. But it is going to be a challenge because it is going to be things moving all around, that type of thing. And you get a little bit of a sample of it when the 2026 comes out here in about another year. So we still got to go to the Knitmans, by the way. If I'm going to do a shout out if you're in Las Vegas. If you're in Las Vegas next month, June 18th, 19th, 17th, somewhere around that time, I'm going to be in Vegas. If you're coming to the Knitmans, holla Knitman. Notice of intent to make a motion. If there's something at the last stage that you just don't agree with, then you submitted a Knitman and now you get to go to the meeting and get up to the microphone and you get to argue your point. And then somebody across the other side of the room can argue against you. It is neat. It's unique like that. Now, it is similar to the ICC meetings like that type of thing, but it's unique to the NFPA and it's the last stage, right? That type of thing, okay? All right. Van Man said, electricians don't retire. They just do other things, just like a Marine. A Marine's always a Marine, right? All right. Okay. Let's talk about bonding jumpers a little bit. We're all familiar with them. You probably watched our other episodes, and we talked about supply side bonding jumpers and where you need them and the extra assuredness you have to do with those. All those type of things. We talked about that. That's covered in 250.92. B gives you all the methods, and then you had 250.97 and all that type of stuff. So we were dealing with over 250 volts to ground. We have all of that stuff we had that we talked about. We got bonding of other enclosures, like for feeder and branch circuit applications. That was 250.96. We covered that. And so, if you didn't check out those videos or watch the additional videos that talk about those pieces, they may raise other questions, and please, by all means, feel free to ask. And I am very opinionated. I am one of those that are very opinionated when it comes to bonding of the service. I am one of those that are like, look, if there are any imperatives, right, like KOs, whether concentric, eccentric, if there are any imperatives, then I need bonding jumpers. If you remove them all, then I can get away with the bonding lock nut. Okay, that's the cost-effective Paul. That's my mentality. So if you keep those kind of simplicity in mind, just think about the integrity of the system. Then there you go. That's the mentality that you have to take. Okay. All right. So let's look at these bonding jumping materials. So, requirements. Bonding jumpers are required to be of copper, aluminum, will skip this product or other corrosive resistant material. All right. A bonding jumper is required to be a wire, bus, screw, or similar suitable conductor. Okay. What's up, AJ? What's up, Angel? Glad to have you here. Good morning. I see you, Tandra. Tandra, is that it? Tandra Thomas, I see you in here. Thank you for joining us, Tandra. Good morning. So it can be copper, aluminum. It could be this other product right here, which we will not talk about, and could be other corrosion resistant material, maybe designed from the manufacturer that is supplied. It can be a wire, a bus, a screw, those type of things. Main bonding jumpers. A lot of them are buses, but in a lot of our images, we show a main bonding jumper as a wire connecting the two buses together, and then in the grounding bus, it's connected to the enclosure. Right? So we talk about that. That connects the two together. So that is sized like a main bonding jumper. So we do that on purpose in order to create conversation points, right, in our illustrations. I don't want to make anything very easy. You know, it's always about a discussion. But again, this is an example. All right, so here's an example where you have bonding jumpers, okay? And it could be various types of the metals that we talk about here. And it may be something else that's like a zinc covered bar or some type of bar that is supplied by a manufacturer. Okay? But those are your bonding jumpers, various different types of material. And basically what it's doing, as y'all know right here, it's just regardless of whether this is removed or not, whether this is a meter or whatnot, and this is a filter or something, that the actual conductivity of this path right here, since they're making the connection here, it looks like 5 foot of the point of entry, right? And this looks like it's probably going to a electrode, a water pipe electrode, right? And so they're making a connection here within 5 foot of the point of entry. The integrity has to be maintained, right? So if these were removed, it wouldn't know any different, okay? It just right over, okay? So that is an example of a bonding jumper. And again, you have different material. What's up, Tom? Welcome. Miguel, welcome. Glad to have you here joining us today. All right, so those are your different materials. Now, connecting all these bonding jumpers to different components, whether it's a bus bar in your panel or you have a conductor you're going to be able to lug on it, or you're CAD welding or exothermic welding, however you're doing it. It says bonding jumpers are required to be attached in the manner specified in 250.8 for circuits and equipment. So you have a list of things that you can do in 250.8, right? So this is a kind of a list that kind of points out everything that you can have. I would just go there just to show it to you. Here's 250.8. I mean, okay, equipment grounding conductors, grounding electroconductors, bonding jumpers, other various types, supply side, system bonding jumpers, things like that, equipment bonding jumpers, all of which are bonding jumpers. Their connections and how they're connected, you have a list of ways to do this, depending on what need. You don't have to use any one. You can use any collection of one collectively. You can use one end one and something at the other end, right? So you can use a connector on the end of the wire, but at the other end you're taking it into a lug. It doesn't matter. You can use multiples. It says one or more of the following. So it's not like it's written in sand, right? That you actually it's not written in stone. It's written in sand, right? It's easier. So you can use all different types, whether it's listed pressure connector, whether it's the terminal bars inside of a panel. Pressure connectors listed for grounding and bonding equipment, exothermic welding process, nasty process, although, only time I ever did, and I remember telling people the story, the only exothermic welding I did was one in an application where one of our grounding electroconductors was cut off, and we did it. It seemed like the best solution at the time. And then for a tower system that we were working on, and that was part of the engineer's requirement. Other than that, done it once, you've done it a million times. I don't care for it. It's just me. Machine screw fasteners that engage not less than 2 threads. Or if it doesn't engage 2 threads and you're doing a machine screw type fastener, then you have it secured with a nut on the inside. Okay, so you have options there. Thread forming machine screw that engage not less than 2 threads. They basically will cut their own threads, and it will be very fine threads so that they actually, again, not less than 2 full threads, okay, as it goes through that box that you're tapping, okay. Most of you probably have a tap set, things like that. Connections that are part of listed assemblies means it's a connection that is already integral or built into the assembly. It's already there. It's already been evaluated with the assembly. Don't have to worry about an inspector going, well, is that termination or okay? It's part of the assembly. It's a listed assembly. It's fine, okay? Or other listed means. That means that other manufacturers can and do come up with other types of means, okay? So, interesting topic here is this box. So interesting, I just throw these things out there real quick. So here's a device, okay? It's a receptacle. It's not an outlet. This is actually the outlet here. But this is a device. The screw on this is required to be green, right? The screw that's in the box, although we buy them with green, they're not required to be green, okay? A lot of people don't know that, right? And the ground screw not required to actually be listed. It's all about the threads and engaging the 2 full threads, and the manufacturers, as part of their listing, will provide you the ability to make that connection. But you also have the little ones that actually can slide over the edge of the box as well. So there are many options that you have out there, but I always think it's quite interesting to note that everybody thinks that is required to be green. Now, the main bonding jumper in a panel has to have a green finish visible after installation, but this isn't required to green. But on the device receptacle, for example, this is required to be green. Interesting, right? Okay. Anyway, just thought we would show you that. Oh, there you go. There's the other device right there. Look at there. Right? Little clip. I don't know how many of you use these little clips, that type of thing. Of course, you could have in this case, you could have a box with a self-grounding receptacle. And then not necessary, okay, that type of thing. All right, anyway, let me pull back up here real quick. Okay, let's get back to the lesson real quick. Okay. All right, so you have to use one of those methods in 250.8, and again, it's going to be lugs, crimps, pressure connectors. Wire binding device, by the way, is a pressure connector, like a wire nut, which is made by Ideal. That type of thing. Interesting topic also, green wire nuts. The green doesn't really matter. Somebody asked, can I use a green wire nut on ungrounded or neutral conductors? And the answer to that is not if it has the hole in the end, because then it doesn't meet the insulating where it covers the entire conductor material. It's open on the end. But obviously fine for equipment grounds, but typically not for use with ungrounded or hot conductors or the grounded conductor, because it usually has a little hole in the end, that type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Let's see here. But you do you. I get it. People do what they do. Now, it says, and equipment and in 250.70 for grounding electrodes. So just for craps and giggles, we'll look at 250.70. And this is, again, the methods of bonding and connections, and I'll just show you that just as a quickie. Again, this is the methods of grounding and bonding conductor connections to the electrodes. So for y'all that never ventured down that road and says, well, dude, I've never gone to 250.70. What the heck? So here it is the general. It says the grounding and bonding conductors shall be connected to the grounding electrode by exothermic weld, listed lugs, listed pressure connected, listed clamps, and other listed means. Manufacturers get creative. They could tell you, they could get something evaluated and have it listed, whatever, okay? Notice this says, connections dependent on solder shall not be used, okay? Ground clamps shall be listed for the material of the grounding electrode and the grounding electrode conductor, and if used on a pipe, rod, or other buried electrode, shall also be listed for direct soil burial or concrete encasement, okay? Again, not more than one conductor shall be connected to a grounding electrode by a single clamp or fitting unless the clamp or fitting is listed for multiple connections. So Acorn clamps, one wire. Can you does it have to be continuous through the ground, from one ground rod to the other ground rod? No. It can stop at the first ground rod on an acorn clamp. You put another acorn clamp, and that is a bonding jumper over to the second, right, electrode. Okay, 6 feet apart if you're using ground rods, for example. But you can't try to put two underneath the one. Now, the easiest thing is just loop it through. Then, you save yourself a connector, right? Saving a little money on the job. I'm saving you some moolah. All right, let's see. Thomas says he used a lot of those little clips back in the day. Put them on the end of your screwdriver, put it on the edge of the box, and just pack that bad boy on there. That type of thing. Yeah, and those little handy boxes. Those little metal handy boxes that are all curved and smooth and whatnot, they don't have any screws in them usually. That's just the easiest thing to do for those. So remember, no solder-dependent attachments, okay, and no sheet metal screws, okay, because the only screws that we have listed in 250.8 engage at least 2 full threads. Sheetrock screws will not do that, okay, so obviously it's not going to meet the requirement if you're using a screw, so you're not going to use sheetrock. Should go without saying, but you know what, no use of sheetrock. And here's a bunch of just a collection of all there. And many manufacturers, Burndy, other ones, Appleton, all make a lot of these things. Thomas and Betts, which I guess is ABB now, and all that kind of stuff. Big collection. All right, now let's talk about the main thing that we've been talking about the last couple of days is bonding on the supply side. So we're going to talk about supply side bonding jumpers. Now, in previous videos, we saw that we have to do it. But now we're going to dig in. All right, so we know we've got to do it. We know we got to bond those raceways on the supply side, especially if we have impairments, right? What's up, Jonathan? Glad to have you here. So what's up, Peter? Glad to see you in here as well. Dan, I saw you sneak in there, Dan. Thanks for being here. So we have to figure out, how do we size these jumpers? Now, the beautiful thing about by removing all of the KOs, for example, using a bonding lock nut, is we ain't got to size squat, right? We just put that bonding lock nut in, drive that screw down, and happy. But if you do have to size the bonding jumper on a supply side bonding jumper, you got to know how to do it. So we're going to talk about that today. And it is low-hanging fruit on exam, by the way, for people asking how to do that. So requirements: the supply side bonding jumper is not permitted to be smaller than specified in 250.102C1. Could be larger, does not have to be, but it can be smaller than what's specified in the table, okay? And we'll show you what we use. What's up, Samantha? Glad to have you here. #win. So, for bonding jumpers on the line or supply side of an overcurrent device, the size of the bonding jumper is based on the size of the supply conductors, not the rating of the overcurrent device. That is reserved for equipment grounding conductors, okay? So when I tell people how to remember things, especially for grounding and bonding, I say, look, it's easy to remember when you're sizing. So for the grounding electroconductor, it's based on the size of the conductors. If it's based on the bonding jumpers, it's based on the size of the conductors. If it's a supply side bonding jumper, if it's on the load side, then it's equipment grounding conductor. It's based on the rating of the overcurrent protected device. Okay. If it's a load side equipment bonding jumper, which we will see in 250.102D, then it's also going to send you back to 250.122 based on the rating of the overcurrent protected device. Right. So if you remember that, man, you've already got a leg up on most people, especially most of the people over on social media who post things there, who post stuff and they have no clue what they're posting. So you already have a leg up on them if you understand those concepts of, okay, when do I use conductors? Okay, basically for everything other than equipment grounding conductors and equipment bonding jumpers. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Not using the overcurrent device to size these supply side bonding jumpers, and valid for both service equipment, and this is also applicable as well on the separately derived system, because we're talking about the derived conductors from the secondary of that transformer. We call those derived conductors. because that's where, because of the transformer's primary to secondary separation, their voltage is changing typically. We're either dropping it down or raising it up. So they're deriving a new reference, a new value from the secondary. So we call that derived conductors, but in a separately derived. But also don't forget that this is also very applicable to separately derived systems like generators, depending on whether or not you're switching a transfer switch or not, whether you're switching the neutral or not, that type of thing. So again, topic for another day, but you're sizing these supply side bonding jumpers based on conductor size that are supplying the system, okay? Don't worry. I'm going to show you, you guessed it, an illustration, okay? And so all we're going to do is we don't know what kind of KOs we're dealing with. We don't know what others have done here. We don't know anything in this scenario, okay? I mean, up here, since these are service conductors, this is a punched hole, so this is probably a bonding lock nut, right? We don't know. On this end, it's probably concentrics, so they need a bonding jumper. Because remember what we said, anytime you have service conductors and you have concentric or eccentric KOs, you're going to have to use bonding jumpers, okay? Unless you remove all of the rings and then you have just a big punched hole, and at that point, you can get away with using something like a bonding lock nut and make life simple, okay? All right, so anyway, in here, just to show you a little bit of every flavor so that we can look at how we would size these things. We're just going to show you all the flavors here, okay? All right, so in this case down here, this raceway, they're doing A, which is using a separate supply side bonding jumper right here, and I will zoom in, just so zoom in. So right here, this is a separate supply side bonding jumper. It is on the supply side because here's the service disconnects, right? So this is your conductors coming in, right? All right, so right here, this is sized based on 250.102C table based on the size of the conductors coming in. And you don't use all of them. You just use one, okay? So we'll just use the black. So if these are 500 kc mil, for example, coming in, maybe this is a 1,000 kc mil combined parallel, but this is 500s and these are 500s. Okay, right here, you use just the one, and this 500, you go to 250.102C1, and you go down, and that will tell you what the size is of that supply side bonding jumper right there. Just that simple. Over here, same thing, because we know that these are in parallel. So that means that the largest over here is also 500. So same size bonding jumper here. Okay, makes sense? All right, now, somebody asked me before we even get there, they may say, well, Paul, I like to be more frugal in my install. Okay, I got you. They say, I just want to go from here and I want to go loop through this one, right? And then I want to loop all the way over here to this and go through this loop and use just one conductor. That's a daisy chain. That is okay too. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you want to do that, right, then your bonding jumper, supply side bonding jumper, has to be based on the summation of both of those raceways. Only one phase, okay? This is 3-phase, so obviously it's 3 phases. But if it was single phase, only one leg. But at the end of the day, that means that it's going to be a 500. Just take the black in each raceway, okay? And so it's 500, 500, 1,000 kc mil, 1 million circular mils. Then you would take that and you go where? You're going to go to 250.102C1 and you're going to go down on the left side. You know what? Actually, you know what? It's probably easier at this stage, since I'm a little ahead of my game on showing you. It's better to just show you the table, dude. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So you get an idea, right? So like say, Paul, you talk about it, bro, but you got to show it. All right, so here's what we're talking about right here. Okay, so we're sizing, okay, for a single raceway, and then we're sizing for 2 or more raceways. So I showed you how to do it. You can go individually to each raceway, is fine. Or you can run a single bonding jumper right here, and you basically can daisy chain through them. But see where it says here, it has to be the sum of the circular mil of the largest ungrounded conductors in each set connected in parallel. So that's what I'm kind of showing you now. So let's go down here to this table. And so if it was that one jumper, as we said, then it would be 500s in that one raceway. Okay, so that would be over 350 through 600. And we're saying it's copper. Okay, looks like copper anyway. So there you go right there, over through 600. Then the bonding jumper, if it was a copper bonding jumper, supply side bonding jumper, it's going to be a 1/0, right? And if it's aluminum, it's going to be a 3/0. Okay, so that's your sizing. Okay, sizing of that bonding jumper. Now, you say to me, they say, Paul, I don't want to run individuals to each one. I don't want to buy 2 lugs. I want to buy 1 freaking lug, and I want to take a jumper and loop it through the lay-in lug on the bushing on each one of those raceways. Okay, you do you, boo. If that's the case, then you have to do summation. And summation means that I'm going to take the 500 plus the 500. So I got 1 million. And if I got 1 million, I got to come back here. And here's what it says right here. See this or right here? So you use the largest ungrounded conductor. You notice it's not plural. That's what I talked to you earlier. Just take the largest conductor from each raceway. If they're parallel, they're going to be installed in parallel, meet all the rules of paralleling in 310.10, G or H, depending on which code cycle you're in. It says, or equivalent area for parallel conductors with plural. Okay? So since we're running 2 raceways with an ABC in one and a neutral and an ABC and a neutral in the other, I'm just going to take the black conductor from each one of the raceways, okay? Assuming we've phased ours out is black, red, blue, by the way. It's not a requirement in the code, but let's say you did. So now I'm going to be over 600, and that is circular mill, folks. When you see that 600, remember that's 600 KC mill through 1100. So that's 1,100,000 circular mill. Okay, so our 1 million falls right here. So that means it's a 2/0. So what does that mean for me and you? Well, that means that if I wanted to run 1 conductor from here and loop it through, then if I ran individuals, it would be a 1/0. If I looped it through, then this would have to be a 2/0. That's fairly small right here. I mean, 500 KC mills parallel like this is, dealing typically with the service. Those conductors are good for 380, typically at 800 amp service, something like that. This is very common. But when you get into really big systems, using that single daisy chain option, the problem with that can be that the conductor gets so large that it won't fit in the lug, right? And you have to use a lug that has a range. And so the lug is going to have stamped on it what it can accept, like a 1/0 through a 4/0 or a 6 through a 1 or things like that, right? And so you might have a hard time finding the lug. So it's probably just as easy to run the individual to each one than it would be to daisy chain it through, okay? So the key takeaway for the exam, though, and I wanted to cover this early with this image, even though you'll see as we move further on. The reason I wanted to cover that early is because on an exam, they have to tell you, the conductors, what they're doing in the raceways, and just remember whether or not it says to do it individually, each raceway, or if you want to use the daisy chain method with a loop together, okay, when you're doing more than one. Okay, if it's just one raceway, it's easy. When it's 2 or more, you have options, okay? And that's what we want to make sure we cover. Okay, make sense? All right, so let's get back here to our lesson. Okay, so that's how we did these, and we're going to go with the singles on each one. Make life simple. 5, here we go, a 1/0 here, a 1/0 here, happy, happy. All right, now, here's where it's different. So up here, we're allowed in the code, as y'all saw in previous episodes, that we're allowed to use the neutral in 250.142 as well as 250.92b1 when it comes to the service, okay? And so I have service conductors in here, okay? So I can bond this enclosure right here with the neutral, and to do that, I need a supply side bonding jumper right here. Now, how do I size this one, right? So this one is where you have to step back really quickly and say, Okay, what is the impact on this enclosure? And the impact is, or the potential on this is both of these, right? Because I have two raceways coming in. So when I'm bonding this raceway, I only base it on the conductors that could energize it right here. So it's just one, right? And I do this one separately. In this scenario, I have both of these that are supplying this enclosure, right? So in this case, I have to take both of these into consideration. And we've already done that when we said it was 500s and 500s, right? So think of this as being individuals, this as being the summation of all of the raceways that come in, okay? So I need to bond this, okay? Plus, it also is an enclosure that's going to see the impact of the parallel set. And so in that scenario is right here, we're going to size this supply side bonding jumper based on the summation, okay? So this one's going to be based on what? It's going to be based on the 1 million circular mills or 1,000 KC mills, okay? So let's kind of go back here, all right? So there, and again, so then that bonds this enclosure, and we saw how you did that, okay? This would be a 2-aught here, and these would be 1-aughts here, right? And now we get, so this is done. This enclosure is done. We sized that bonding jumper. So now we have this right here, okay? So we have this wireway. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. These are just illustrations. But if these are actually connected together with an assembly that you buy it this way, and it's basically an accessory to this CT, like bolts it, it has a bolting, and it gets bolt with screws, and it's threaded, right? And it meets those 2 engagements, and everything's done, then it is going to be connected in an acceptable method in 250.8a as part of that list, okay? Then it would be done, right? It's connected together. It's mated together. In our example here, we're just going to assume that there doesn't show any screwing, so they're just butted, they're just next to each other. Okay, so now I'm going to bond this wireway, okay? And I don't necessarily call it, in my mind, it may be, I could be wrong with this, but I don't necessarily call this an auxiliary gutter because I think of auxiliary gutter as additional wiring space for the equipment that which it's connected. And if I needed additional wiring space for this, then it might be, I would add an auxiliary gutter onto it or something like that. I look at this as a wireway, but the rules are very similar. So when we're talking bonding, it's basically saying, okay, well, how do I bond this to this? All right, well, I install a bonding jumper. This also being considered like a raceway, it's really no different than what you're doing down here. It's no different. The only difference up here, like over here, is that you're actually seeing the impact of all of the sets. And because you're seeing the impact of all of the sets, and they enclose that wireway, now I have to bond it accordingly. So again, I'm going to do the same thing I did down here. I'm going to use the summation. And I'm just going to take one set, just the blacks. That's it, okay? And so it'd be 500 and 500. And then we go back to 250.102C1. And we're going to go down. And that's going to put us in the over 600 through 1100 in copper. And that's going to ultimately tell us that we need to have a 2-aught supply side bonding jumper right here. Remember, we're still on the supply side of the service. We hadn't gotten there yet. Right here. Okay? All right, so there. Now, we worked our way all the way down. Now we're down here at the service disconnects. And we're going to assume right here that the typical service disconnect or the typical service panel is got concentric KOs at the top. Okay, maybe even eccentric, or eccentric. So depending on how you like to say it. So right here, depending on what part of the country you're in, maybe. All right, so right here, we have to do a little bit of extra bonding. Up here, we'll assume that we have some bonding lock nuts in, that these are punched holes, because that typically aren't, typically these are going to be where you punch your own holes. So we have a bonding lock nut in there. So down here, we have an imparity. So again, it's still service conductors. So down here, what we're going to do is we're going to install a supply side bonding jumper down here. Okay. How do you size this? Well, the easiest way to remember these again is if I'm doing this to bond this raceway to this enclosure, okay, and I have an impairment and I'm sizing this supply side bonding jumper, what did we say? What is the impact of the conductors and what is inside of the equipment that we're trying to bond? Well, we only have one set coming down. The black, red, and the blue right here. So we only have to take one. Just like we did down here, we only have to take the one, right? So we're doing it this way right here. Now, some important clarity on this, just little things I like that you're, and so this is going to be based, so this will be a 500 kc mill. Then this right here, supply side bonding jumper, would be, again, this would be the 1/0, that type of thing. Knock out all of these knockouts, and then you could put a bonding lock nut in there and save yourself all this trouble. One thing I will point out, these right here are being run in parallel, okay? These right here are not being run in parallel. Anybody know why? Anybody know why these aren't run in parallel? I love it. See it in the comments. I love it. We have a little learning moments. Why these aren't in parallel. Now, you still take the summation because they're both here. There's two blacks in here. So when we're sizing this bonding jumper, it's exposed to that. But why is this not considered in parallel? And this is considered in parallel. Why do you think? Well, the main reason is in order to be in parallel, it's connected together at both ends to act as one. Here, they're not connected together at both ends. They are here, but over here, it separates and one goes into one disconnect here, and then the other goes into here, okay? So they're not connected and meet the rules for paralleling because they're not being used as parallel. They're not being used in parallel in order to get more current capacity. They're run individually to each one of these, okay? So that's the reason, all right? Okay. Different disconnects, absolutely. All right. Okay, now, just like what we saw before, 250.102C2 says, okay, well, it's very easy if you have one raceway. Just use the conductor, the largest conductor that's in that raceway. Just use the black, go to 250.102C1, go down, size it, boom, put a bonding jumper on there. Or remove all the KOs and use a bonding lock nut. Service applications, that's what we're talking about, right? Or supply side applications, okay? All right, easy peasy. Now, if the ungrounded conductors supply are connected in parallel in two or more raceways or cables, the supply side bonding jumper must be sized in accordance with either of the following. So you heard me talk about it. I can use one individual bonding jumper for each raceway. So I just go from the grounded terminal bus over to the raceway individually to each one separately, okay? And it would be based in the size of that bonding jumper. It would be based on the size of the ungrounded supply conductors in each raceway independently, okay? Note that the total area of the ungrounded conductors exceeds 1100 kc mil copper or 1750 kc mil aluminum, then we have to apply a 12.5% application, okay? Now, the reason we bring that up is because you could have a single raceway, but you could have multiple sets in the single raceway. So if I have a raceway that's large enough, and I may have parallel sets, and I may have two blacks, two reds, two blues, that type of thing in that raceway, let's say, then I have to take the two blacks, right, and add them together just like we did earlier when they were in separate races. Same thing, because they're in the same raceway. And then I take that value, right? And then that's when I go to 250.102C1. So I can't have parallels in a single raceway, or I could have parallels in multiple sets of raceway, that type of thing, okay? All right, so there we go. So that's that one. And then the second one is the one I talked about, is the daisy chain. It says a single bonding jumper installed for bonding two or more raceways or cables. Okay, don't think this only applies to raceways. Obviously, this applies to MC or cable assemblies that come in as well. Must be sized in accordance with table 250.102C1 based on the sum. We call this the summation of circular mill area of the largest ungrounded conductors from each set connected in parallel in each raceway or cable. Okay? It says the size of the grounded conductors in each raceway or cable must be based on the largest ungrounded conductor in each raceway or cable, or the sum of the circular mill or the area of or the largest ungrounded conductor in each set connected in parallel in each raceway or cable. That's a lot of words. So let's look at some illustrations. Let's look at a graphic, okay? So if we're looking at it here, so we have two different options here. So here are conductors coming in. Obviously, they're coming in, a threaded entry coming in. We can't use standard lock nuts. These are service conductors coming in right here. So we're going to use a bonding bushing. Okay, now we have a lock nut on the outside. That's mechanical, okay? That type of scenario right there, okay? If you have, so Haas did, obviously Haas missed our other episodes that we were talking about. So it doesn't matter when it comes to this part of it, right? Whether it's, if you have an impairment, you have to have a bonding jumper, okay? Doesn't matter. If you have a concentric or eccentric KO and you remove them all out, right? Then you can use a bonding lock nut, properly size that thing, that type of thing. Reducing washers on services are frowned upon because I can't remember whether or not they're actually evaluated for use in service applications that I've used all the time on the load side. You'd have to check with the manufacturer, but if you even if you did have a service acceptable reducing washer, for example, you would still, because it's still an impairment, you would still have to have a bonding jumper. As far as sizing the jumpers, it doesn't matter. You size them based on the size of the conductors coming in. Okay, so the opening doesn't really matter, that type of thing. All right, so let's look at this example right here. All right, and I will blow up each one of these so we can kind of look at it. We'll look at this one first. All right, so this right here, they're coming in, and again, they're using a lock nut for mechanical reasons. Let's say rigid coming in, but they can't use lock nuts, okay? Can't use standard lock nuts for this. So here's your bonding bushing, and they have put the supply side bonding jumpers on them. So in this effort, they chose to do it individually. Okay, so this is C1, individually for each raceway. Okay, all right, not going to be an issue here to do this. All right, so how are these sized? Well, this one is sized, this jumper is sized based on, these are all probably going to be the same size. Okay, the black, red, the blue, all probably going to be the same size. So it's just take the black. If this was 500 kc mil, like we saw earlier, then that would be a 1/0. Okay, these are all running parallel, so following the paralleling rules, okay, same thing would be over here. We'd use the black for this one, and this would be, it doesn't matter whether you use the black, red, or blue. It doesn't matter, okay? And so, okay, so that's going to be a 1/0 for that one. And the same thing on this one, a 1/0. So this is C1 when you're paralleling in multiple raceways, okay? So this is what you can do here in this option, okay? And for craps and giggles purposes, just so people understand where we're at, see this bonding here, this enclosure? This right here is also, notice how this looks bigger? This one, to bond this enclosure, okay, being done right here using the neutral, right? Because you're allowed to do that, 251.42. Also, you're allowed to do this in 250.92B1 as well in service application, okay? So this right here, this supply side bonding jumper for this is bigger than these, right? Because it is based on what? The summation. So you take the white, the black, the black, the black, add their circular mills up together, then you go to 250.102C1 and size this conductor. Okay. All right. So that's that one. Now let's go look at this one. So this one's slightly different, slightly different here, right? In the sense that now that we're dealing with this here, and this brings in a little interesting note to make people aware of this, okay? Because you would have still had to do this, by the way, over here as well, although this wasn't part of the lesson. But this, again, this bonding jumper, if it is over 1100 kcmil copper or 1750 aluminum, then you would have to go into the 12.5%, right? But let's go look at this one, because now we're going to call it out, because that is part of what they're calling out, so you can kind of learn from the lesson. There you go. All right, so this case, we choose to run a single through, right? Single. And in this case, we're assuming these conductors here, we don't know the sizes of them, but if it was 500, 500, 500, it would definitely be over 1100. It'd be 1500 or 1,500,000 circular mil. So it definitely would kick in the 12.5% here, but it also kicks the 12.5% rule here. Why is that? Because the table only goes up to 1100 kcmil of copper and 1750 aluminum. Once you get above that in your conductors, then you're going to actually have to go to the notes. And the notes that are on the table are not informational notes. They are applicable notes. Okay, so there's a big difference between a note being informational and a note being part of the code itself. And it is part of the code. So if you go look at the notes, then what you'll see is if you get down here in these notes, then it'll talk about it, for example. Here's where you get your 12.5%, right there. Okay, that's where we're getting the notation in order to go, because you'll see here when it's over 1100 or over 1750 aluminum, it says C note 1 and 2. You don't get that over in 250.66. Okay, it just basically, it doesn't have to be larger than, it just says boom, done. If you go look at 250.66, it says, you know what? I don't really care at this point. It says right here, I'll show it to you. Right here, it says if it's over 1100 or over 750, it says, look, 3/0, done. 3/0's done. There's no 12.5% here, right? It's just done. 250 kcmil aluminum, it's done. You don't have to do anything else. So you see this table is very similar, right, as what we had in 250.102, but it does have some modifications. Why? Because of the level of potential fault current that we can have with these bonding jumpers, right? So you see everything else is almost like a regurgitation, except for adding additional down here. Instead of saying 3/0 and 250, it sends you down here to these notes, okay? All right. All right. That's the main part of what we want to talk about with that. Let me get back to the lesson real quick. All right, so that's how you apply that. Now, so that's just that simple with supply side applications and sizing the bonding jumpers. Just keep a bigger picture of what conductors you're dealing with. So if you're bonding the bigger enclosure that's seeing all of the sets, then you use them in summation. If you're doing an individual raceway and you have options there. If you're doing the individual raceway, then you can size the supply side bonding jumper to each individual raceway based on the size of the conductors that are in that raceway. Just take the largest, just take the black, make it simple, size it there, okay? And so you do that, or you can do the daisy chain, which is you take the summation, you add it, the largest conductor in each raceway, black one, black one, black one, add them together, and then go to the table, that type of thing. So you have options for supply side bonding. All right, what about 250.102D for sizing equipment bonding jumpers on the load side of an overcurrent device? Well, the easiest way to remember this is ultimately 250.102D is going to send you back to 250.122, and it's going to be based on the overcurrent protected device that's protecting the circuit, right? So the equipment bonding jumper on the load side of an overcurrent device is required to be sized in accordance with 250.122. And of course, we can show you that in the code. It just says it pretty much verbatim right here. It says the equipment bonding jumper on the load side of an overcurrent device shall be sized in accordance with 250.122. Okay? It says a single common continuous equipment bonding jumper shall be permitted to connect 2 or more raceways or cables if the bonding jumper is sized in accordance with 250.122 for the largest overcurrent protected device circuit therein. So what does that mean? Everybody, somebody goes, same kind of concept, same daisy chain concept. It's just that if I use one size, then loop it through one raceway to bond, let's say for the equipment bonding jumper, and then I continue on to another raceway, I have to make sure that that equipment bonding jumper is sized to the larger of the overcurrent device. So whatever I have in this raceway, and I have this raceway, say I have separate circuits in this raceway, I have separate circuits in this raceway, I'm doing an equipment bonding jumper for these raceways, okay? Maybe it's an open bottom or something, and it's going out with a metal raceway, it's going out the bottom and open bottom on the load side, let's just say. So I can run one equipment bonding jumper and loop it through, just like we did with the supply side. The only caveat is that I might have circuits that are in the first raceway that are 60 amp overcurrents, the maximum size, and the one next to it might have a 100 amp overcurrent protected device. So if I want to do that, I have to make sure that I size that equipment bonding jumper based on the worst case scenario or the largest overcurrent protected device that is in the raceways that I'm running that equipment bonding jumper to loop through. Make sense? Okay. Now, let's see here. So this is an example here. So we got this all coming in. This is quite an interesting picture because people say, is this a service coming in? And we say, no, it's not, because you see it's got equipment grounds coming through with it, right? I'll zoom in on this real quick because it's kind of neat. So see, no, you got equipment grounds coming through. So that tells us this isn't service conductors coming in. This is a remote panel somewhere downstream. You've got them coming in. It is being installed in parallel because that side is connected the same as this side. We don't know what that side is, but we'll assume it is. But you see it's got equipment grounds coming. Also, you can tell because the neutral bus here with this kind of this tanned out shows you that it is isolated, okay? It is isolated. So remember, no improper case neutral connections downstream, right? All right, anyway, so there you go. So what we're talking about, it says that I could use, remember what I said, I could use a common one? Just one single conductor rather than coming from this bus and jumping one over here, then jumping one over to here, then jumping one to here, and jumping one to here, and going through all that. I can use one simple one and loop it through, right? But here's the caveat, as I told you right here. If you want to do that, you got a 250, a 200, a 300, and a 350. This equipment bonding jumper would have to be sized based on the worst case scenario, which is the 350 overcurrent device, if I want to run one continuous through, okay? So it's not brain surgery, but, depending on the size. Now here, it doesn't really matter. These are rather large. But you could have a vast difference in sizes from a 14 equipment bonding jumper to a 6 to an 8, that type of thing. So it may behoove you to run individuals to it instead of running one looping through. Your installation's different. You do you. But here you see an example of an open bottom, right? This is where the raceways are coming up through the bottom, okay? And this is using an individual equipment bonding jumper in order to bond all of those. But I could run single ones if I want to each individual one. That's choice. That's up to you. You can do that, okay? All right, let's see here. We'll go on and I don't know what the time is on it. We're a little over. Let's see if I can finish. Yeah, I can finish this. So let's go on and finish this out. So now we're going to talk about bonding jumpers and bonding jumpers, bonding conductors, equipment bonding jumpers. They can actually be installed inside or outside of the raceway. Now, there are caveats to how you would do this, okay? So inside of a raceway or enclosure, obviously, again, if it is a bonding jumper, it says, if installed inside of a raceway, equipment bonding jumpers and bonding jumpers or conductors must comply with 250-119 and 250-148 if you're installing it inside. Why is that important? Okay, well, let's go look really quickly because we talked about this the other day. I think we touched on it. Let's go over. Actually, let's go here and see if this will show it up good enough. So here's E. So this is where it says those bonding jumpers. This is what I just read verbatim. Okay, so we're talking about bonding jumpers. We're tying metal together. We're tying maybe two raceways together. Maybe there's a non-metallic piece in the middle. We're bonding jumping. We're installing a bonding jumper to make it act as one. Okay. Okay. Yes, you can use regular lock nuts on the load side. You just have to be careful when you're dealing with over 250 volts to ground. So make sure you watch yesterday's video when it talks about load side. So go back and watch yesterday's. So you do have some caveats you have to follow in those applications when you're dealing on a load side application where you have over 250 volts to ground, that type of thing. But your normal 120, 240, all those type of applications, not a problem. Also, you do have allowances for you to use standard lock nuts for over 250 volt to ground with listed fittings. As long as it's a listed fitting, that type of thing, and you're not encountering any impairments, right? Like a concentric, eccentric KOs, or if you remove all of the knockouts. So if you go look at 250-97, you're going to see an exception. It basically tells you follow the rules in 250.92B 2, 3, and 4, right? And you have to remember the charging statement of 250-92B in general, so not using standard lock nuts. And then you can use the exceptions, right? Exceptions in 250.97 that say, oh, by the way, we'll let you use a standard lock nut as long as you don't have any impairments, that type of thing. So go check 250.97 and look at that exception if you have no impairments. And impairments are concentric, eccentric, eccentric, impaired knockouts, damaged KOs, damaged entries, something the integrity doesn't look good, reducing washers, all those type of things. Then you're going to have to do something, a little something, okay? That type of thing. All right. So where are we at? So here we go. So here's inside. So if installed inside of a raceway, so yes, you can have bonding jumpers inside of a raceway, equipment bonding jumpers inside of the raceway. Maybe it run through the end of flex or something like that. You could do that, right? Maybe you come to a box and then you flex down to a piece of equipment and you're going to run it on the outside or you're going to run it on the inside. Okay, whatever. But it says that it has to comply with 250.119. And if you look at 250.119, it talks about identification, okay? So this is what talking about color coding. So somebody asked me yesterday or the day before, does bonding jumpers have to be color coded? Typically not. However, if they're installed inside of a raceway in their bonding jumpers or equipment bonding jumpers, then here it says inside, they specifically have to follow the rules of 250.119, and that is where it could be green, that type of thing. But you'll also notice if we go back here real quick, that it also says what? It says that they can also are permitted to be what? Bare, okay? It can be bare, covered, or insulated, okay? But if it's insulated or covered, then the equipment grounded conductor, if you're following these rules, then it has to be green, that type of scenario, okay? So again, it's telling you to identify, but it could be bare. All right, keep in mind. All right, now, one that seems to come up the most with people is the outside of raceway or an enclosure. And we will see an image of this, and I think there's a graphic down here. So if installed on the outside, so if I want to install, let's say I have a piece of flex, and I want to install the equipment bonding jumper on the outside, okay, for whatever reason, then it says, if installed on the outside, it says the length of the bonding jumper or conductor or equipment bonding jumper shall not exceed 6 feet and shall be routed with the raceway or enclosure. So routed along the same path as the raceway goes, okay? Now, there is an exception. It can be longer than 6 feet. This is typically when you're bonding raceways that emerge from the earth and those things like that. Okay, so that you do have an exception here. But this is what we're talking about right here. So see this? So this motor right here, okay? And here's the motor controller. Here's everything in here. There's the short circuit ground fault protection. All of this. So a 10 AWG copper bonding jumper conductor, not more than 6 feet, run external, routed with the raceway. So there it is. So there's your flexible metal conduit right here. And it is running it right here, external. It's okay. Could be run internal, or it could be run external. Where may that be a problem for some people? Well, you may have a motor that the actual connection point is external to the pecker head that's actually made onto the actual motor. So, yes, he said it.
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
And so that connection may behoove you to run that connection outside of the wiring method, okay? All this is telling you is that, you know what? You have the ability to do that. Generally, you're not going to go from most all applications, except for the exception with standing, you're going to not exceed 6 feet on that conductor. And you notice that it is run with the wiring method, okay? Exception, again, you saw that exception. It says where equipment bonding jumper or supply side bonding jumper longer than 6 feet is permitted at outside pole locations for the purpose of bonding or grounding isolated sections of metal raceway or elbows installed in exposed risers of metal conduit or other metal raceway, and for bonding grounding electrodes, and is not required to be routed with the raceway or enclosure under this exception only for these specific conditions, okay? This happens to be an example here where they might be doing something. So this raceway, let me give you an example. So this raceway right here, okay? So this raceway right here may have been used, for example, as the equipment grounding conductor, right? And so because of this movement, the jurisdiction, maybe this is a parking deck, and you're going to have movement and deflection. So what they do is they use this flex. Well, in short, to maintain the integrity, maybe this is a non-metallic flexible conduit, and they're using it here. And so this is your equipment ground. This is your equipment ground, integrity of the system. So they're putting an equipment bonding jumper on here to maintain the integrity because they have some flexibility at this joint in a parking garage. I don't know. I'm just assuming this is what it is, right? That type of thing, right? So in that scenario, this is an example, and this cannot be over 6 feet, but it most certainly can be outside, and it may be applicable into your installation, and at least the code gives us flexibility to do that, okay? And again, generally, other than that exception, it's going to be limited to 6 feet long, and it's going to be sized based on 250.122 because, again, since we're using the raceway in this case, there is no sizing because the raceway you don't size anything for that. Raceway folks love that. But since it's an equipment bonding jumper and it is basically connecting the two together, since it is of the wire type, then it must be sized based on 250.122, based on the size of the overcurrent protective device that protects the circuit that's in this raceway. Oh, here's a little caveat to remind you. If this raceway had multiple circuits, let's say this raceway had 20 amp circuits in there and had 30 amp circuits in there and had 40 amp circuits in there, right? Let's just say they were sharing a raceway, which you can do. When sizing that equipment bonding jumper and you're using 250.122, you're going to use the largest overcurrent protected device, okay? 250.122 allows me to use one equipment grounding conductor in a raceway where I have multiple circuits that they're protected by various sizes overcurrent devices, okay? We're permitted to do that in 250.122. But you have to size the equipment ground based on the largest overcurrent protected device, okay? GEC, equipment grounding conductor, so if it's on the outside, you don't need one on the inside. This is an example. If you already have, for example, an equipment grounding conductor that's running through the raceway, equipment ground. So this is cases where I'm using, for example, the raceway and I need to maintain the integrity. That's one of the reasons why I would install that on the outside, that type of thing, okay? So, I mean, this is just giving you options to be able to install it in length limitations on the outside. In the example that we show, that raceway is probably being used as a equipment grounding conductor. And so in order to maintain the integrity over that movement or where it moves, then what are they doing with that? Then they're using an equipment bonding jumper to connect the two pieces together. And the code allows you to do that, okay? Now, if it's on the load side and that raceway is bonded at the other end and it's bonded to the raceway, and then the other end is bonded to that box on the other end, and there is an equipment ground running through it, then it wouldn't be necessary to run that bonding jumper over it. That's why you have to think. If the integrity of the system is in play and I'm using that raceway, which the code permits me to do, okay, whether some of you do or not, the code permits me. 250.118 says that I can use rigid, intermediate, EMT. People say I would never do that. I'm always going to run a wire type. And I'm in the wire business, so I like when you do. But there are many applications where you do not need to do it, right? Okay, and to kind of illustrate that, in this image, I can just use it as an example. Is I could blow this up here and say, well, maybe, in some of these, like see this one here, that doesn't have any jumper on it right here. Then that might have an equipment grounding conductor in there, right? And this is metal. And it stops right here. Transition fitting. I don't know. It may be. I don't see anything. Okay. Connects to the box. Here, this is the integrity of this, so they put them on here. I don't see any on these, right? Let's see if I can back out a little bit. Yeah, let me back out. So here, see from here to here, these may have an equipment ground. Yeah, okay? So, comes back over to here. This probably has an equipment ground in it. This side of the raceway is bonded to whatever that side is. This side right here is bonded to this box, and I'm sure that there's bonding in here, and this metal box is bonded, that type of thing. These pass by. They continue on. Okay? That makes sense? Another good example is here. Look at this here. I don't know what all is on here, but this is MC, or this might be Flex. Okay? So we don't know what all is going on in this picture, but there's a lot going on in here with flexible, whether it's FMC. I'm sure that's probably FMC the way it's installed. All type. I mean, there's so much stuff going on here. Here's some more flex over here. So this image is just kind of to show you the jumper. I don't know the history behind that image. I really don't. All right. Okay. All right. That's a lot. Again, it's all about looking at the integrity. Just because you can do something maybe doesn't always mean that you want to do something. If I'm using a raceway as an equipment grounding conductor and there's something that breaks the integrity of that, then I have to install an equipment bonding jumper. I have to maintain the integrity. You don't always have a wire type equipment grounding conductor in a raceway. I mean, I would love you to, but you may not. So that's an example where equipment bonding jumper would come into play. So you may never run into that. You may never run into that situation because you may always install a wire type equipment grounding conductor in every raceway, okay? But you have options. You have flexibility, those type of things, okay? Makes sense? All right. All right, folks, let's do some giveaways real quickly, get some people on the list. I am definitely, as Adam says, I am definitely in a habit now of going over. I will make it an effort starting tomorrow to stick to the hour, okay? Because I get it. I hate these long ones. Y'all hate them. I guess y'all hate them. I will try to stick to the hour. All right, let's do this here. Let me get back because it kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Exactly right, Jonathan. If the flex breaks the ground, then jump is required. All right, Michael. So let's see, Michael. Yar, bro. You are in the drawing for the 2023 flashcards. And they are online flashcards, okay? So good luck. Hey, AJ says, I don't mind. Y'all are code nerds. I need to rename it Coffee Hour-ish. Well, lately I need to rename it Diet Pepsi-ish, right? I don't know if this thing is stuck. All right, so Edgar seems to be the flavor of the day, those flashcards. So, Edgar, you are also in the drawing for those flashcards. And those flashcards are just to help you learn the different articles, to be able to quote them. You know, just quote, 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 quote. All right? All right, let's get something different on the wheel. Let's go. Hump day. And Jeff tells me we will have the hogs set up for the annual thing here in the next day or two. So that's good news for those that just want to do the annual and get it over with. Some people like to rip that Band-Aid off right away. And so that'll be all set up here probably in a day or so. All right, so you're in the drawing for Trade Hog Basic, Santana. Good luck for that. And also, I did have a message here. Let me double check. Hoss, you won the Minimalist Wallet. And Rob, you also won the Minimalist Wallet. Let us know what you want on your wallet. And again, provide your address again. I don't know why Jeff said he didn't have it. I think we do have Rob's, but let us know what you want. Whether you want the Masters or the Journeyman wallet, and whether or not you want your name and your license number or just your name. Send that to us in an email so that we know that I can pass that on to Jeff so he can. That's the only thing he was waiting to engrave that on your Minimalist wallets to get those out the door. Okay, we're going at a time. We're slow, folks. Y'all know that. It's coming, but some of the engraved stuff is a little slower. Okay. All right, speaking of the devil, melted toast, and I think you already have a Fast Tracks tube, so we're going to spin again for you. What the hell is that going on? All right, let's see here. See what you get. All right, you're in the drawing for the knife. And I can tell you the knife is sharp, okay? For those that don't know, this is what Rob is drawing for. A little mini knife. I keep one on my keychain all the time. I use it to open boxes and all kinds of other goodies. All right, one more spin. Let's go. And something's going out in the mail today. I don't know what they are. Somebody's stuff. I can't remember what coins are going out. I think it's the ultimate coins are going out today. All right, Ryan, there you go. Wire Waffle, send us an email. Let us know your mailing address, and we will get you a wire waffle. I don't know how many of those we have left. But that is a neat little product that helps you be able to bring multiple cables through a single opening and not violate 312.5C of the National Electrical Code. Okay. All right, folks. That is it. I appreciate all of you for joining us. We made it through Hump Day, right? We made it through. There's always tomorrow to get back at it again. We got to get through the rest of the day. Do me a favor, folks. Check out Trade Hog. It's now available on tradehog.com, .net, .org. It doesn't matter. It all goes to the net, which is our foundation. The .com will be used later for something bigger that we have in the works. But right now, all of them go to tradehog.net. Give it a shot. Test the hog. See how it does for you. Ask it some questions and give it a shot. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you all. Till next time, stay safe. God bless, and I will catch you on an upcoming episode. Okay. Take care.